Le futur du digital storytelling. That's what they asked me to talk about. But I have to tell you, I don't know what that future is. And if anyone tells you that they know what that future is, you shouldn't believe them. Because we know from experience that it is impossible to predict the future. In general, it's even less possible, I think, to predict the future in terms of digital innovation. But what I will try to do in the course of this conversation is to talk about some of the things that I think about when I'm preparing content for my own site, when I'm working with my colleagues, when I'm thinking about the state of the news business as a whole. And hopefully, through the course of it, you can find some things that are useful. As I alluded to earlier, I've been in the news business now for 40 years. I spent a quarter of a century working with some of the finest journalists in the world at the New York Times. Many of them, as I think I alluded to earlier, were somewhat reluctant to embrace the potential of digital storytelling. I felt that there was an underlying fear about how fast the industry was changing and how some of those changes were threatening traditional practices and conventional business models. But thankfully, I think a lot of that resistance is beginning to wear away. That more journalists are realizing, as I've said many, many times, that we are in a golden age of storytelling. We are at a time when the tools of expression, the tools of interaction with an audience are more sophisticated by the day, that allow us the means of reaching people in ways that were unimaginable 5 years ago. The world, though, as all of you know, this world is filled with challenges, not just business models, not just competition, but understanding how this array of tools, apps, software can affect how you go about presenting information and how you go about reaching an audience. And among those challenges, I think, are posed by two devices that we are going to, hear a lot about in the next, months and years. Obviously, the watch is getting a great deal of attention. What are we going to do with it? I don't have any better idea than I have about the future of digital storytelling. Or devices such as this, where the potential of immersive devices like VR devices, how that could change storytelling. Maybe 2 or 3 years we come back and see where those two devices have really taken our business. But I think that they are definitely the things that I want to be watching, and I know that my colleagues will be. Anyway, let me walk you through some of the principles that I spent a lot of time thinking about, and I would encourage everyone to, as they approach the challenge of digital storytelling. Okay, first one. You don't own the platform. You may own a platform, but you don't own all of them. And the array of digital platforms that we are publishing on now and will continue to be publishing on will grow again by the day. Some of these platforms, blessedly, will send traffic back to your sites. Facebook mostly does. We'll see about tomorrow. Certainly Twitter does. Instagram doesn't. Snapchat doesn't. It's worth talking a minute about Facebook because they're in the process of rolling out a new system wherein publishers will be hosting content directly on the site. I think we'll know a lot more about that tomorrow or the next day than I do right now, but I do know that both the New York Times, BuzzFeed, and a handful of other publications have been working with Facebook on this pilot project, but I emphasize pilot because I would be very certain that this will grow further. Already Facebook is is hosting videos that many of us are creating. They're being played within the news stream. They are being played independent of our websites or our apps. And this sort of thing will definitely continue. So the future, to me, of digital storytelling does not exist on a single platform, and we need to learn to adapt our content in ways that perform on multiple platforms. What does this mean in practical terms? Well, it means creating videos that play within the Facebook newsfeed that are optimized for that platform, and that may be very, very different from the way similar videos would be playing on your own news sites or on YouTube. It also means adapting our content to work on Instagram or adapting it to work on Vine. It means creating unique photography that works on various platforms. I think it's worth thinking about embracing new channels as platforms for experimentation. I assume some people have seen. Excuse me. Let me get to the next slide. Here we go. Meerkat. This is an app that did not exist a month ago. No one had ever heard of it 3 weeks ago, but it has now exploded onto the scene with great ferocity. And many publishers are beginning to experiment with this app. The second image is my boss, our CEO, Pete Cashmore, who is actually in a car. I'm not sure what he's doing or what he's actually talking about. But for those of you who haven't tried this, it's a very interesting live streaming app. It sits on top of Twitter. It has great Twitter integration. It allows an audience to talk to you as you're broadcasting. You can then, in your voice, address the people whose comments are sort of scrolling in under, at the bottom of that window. We also did it yesterday. That's Prince Andrew at the Pitch at the Palace event. I think that we had to tell him what Meerkat was before we could actually get him to agree to appear. I'm not sure he understood it even after we talked to him about it. But this is the kind of thing where a new app or a new device is available to us. Let's try to figure out how we can use the tool. Let's figure out where it fits, how we can experiment, how we can reach a bigger audience. The tweet that I put at the bottom of that slide was something that one of my colleagues had posted yesterday while the Prince Andrew thing was going on, and the journalist who was doing the who was doing the broadcasting had used those phrases. You are currently live on Meerkat, which again is something that we would not have heard about a month ago. So what do we do with all of this? I just think this is a question all of us ought to be asking ourselves. A new platform comes around, Meerkat, Vine, Instagram. What do we do? How do we take advantage of it? And where do the opportunities lie? Understand mobile. This I'm sure to many people this goes without saying, but there's something very specific that I want to talk about here. This isn't just a matter of creating content that works uniquely or ideally on mobile. I hope that everybody by now has understood how important it is to think of mobile first, or at least give priority to how your development is carried out with mobile technology in mind. What I think is very critical right now to publishers is to think about what mobile consumption is like. What are the patterns of consumption? Our editors in your newsrooms, for instance, they working on these giant Macs 27-inch monitors. Does your CMS include mobile preview as your editors are working on your site? Do you as editors look at videos, at the finished videos in a mobile framework before they are published. I know I don't do that enough, and I know that my newsroom probably needs to do it even more, and we have to. Most news sites a year ago, if not 2 years ago, crossed the 50% threshold, wherein now for us it's like 56, and I saw, I think, was it maybe BBC.com, 65% of its usage is now on mobile platforms. So if you're not thinking about how your editors and how your newsrooms interact with mobile in the process of creating content, you need to. I also want to talk about the patterns of mobile consumption too. These are two slides that I noticed, I think earlier in this month. They were it was representative of a single day, and obviously you can't read too much into a single day's traffic, but this was Mashable traffic. The top chart is Mashable traffic on the desktop, peaking in the middle of the afternoon, as it virtually always does. That's, I think, 2 p.m., 3 p.m. And the mobile, the graph below that shows the mobile traffic, or at least traffic to our mobile app. And what it does, it shows this little spike at 11 p.m., which I've seen on other days. That's not completely unique. But that makes you scratch your head a little bit and say, you know, what's happening at 11 p.m.? And I'm just guessing, and I'm sure analytics could tell us more, but I'm just guessing that a person coming to a news site at 2 or 3 in the afternoon is different in their desires than somebody who's coming at 11 at night. My guess is the person coming at 11 at night wants a little more entertainment, wants something to have fun with. So maybe we should be thinking about producing a different type of content at 11 p.m. than we might be producing at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Okay, rethink the story. And I think this comes a little bit more toward the future of digital storytelling. I'm not the first person to say this. Attention spans are shorter. We're filled with a world of distraction, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, Snapchat, random YouTube videos. It's imperative that people like us adapt to this environment, understand how content is being consumed and being shared, and adapt your content creation to take account of that. I'm going to give you a little bit of history of our own site. This will take maybe 2 minutes. We started in 2005 as a blog that was devoted to the new and evolving world of social media. This, I think, was one of the very first posts that was published in July 2005. Most of the coverage was on the emerging world of social media. MySpace was a thing. We covered that. The emergence of Facebook, Twitter a couple of years later. By 2008, it had become known as the Social Media Guide, and in large part because of the way it had covered those emerging industries in ways that other publications had not been. But as time went on, we took on more sort of broader-based tech coverage, which was certainly good for the business. It also expanded the audience to the point where, here we are in our existing iteration. We have a fully responsive site, which works very well for our business model. Our ads are responsive. We sell a single package to advertisers. We also have mobile apps, but much of our traffic is coming to the web view. Our audience is 50% male, female. We consider our audience to be millennials and those who think like them. The largest age group is between 18 and 44. And I think if you drill down, the big bubble is between 25 and 35. Pretty much a global audience, mostly clustered in English-speaking areas of the world. I think we're almost at 2% in France, and hopefully we'll grow more. But most of our audience is obviously in the United States, but it's almost 50-50 U.S. versus the rest of the world. We have done a lot of real-time news coverage. This is one thing where I feel like, even with a relatively small staff, we've been able to use social tools as a way to connect us to world events. We've also invested quite heavily in entertainment, climate, gender equality, and travel. Those are all subjects that work very well for our audience. And we continue to focus on some of the core aspects of the coverage that we've been doing for almost 10 years: technology, social media, business, and digital culture. We take great pride in this set of statistics because so much of what we do, so much of our model, our business model, is built on the notion of social sharing. We do a lot to engineer our site to make it easily shared, and we do a lot to make our content shareable, the kind of stuff that readers want to show their friends, their relatives. So this set of statistics comes from February. These are tweeted links to individual publications, and why I'm very happy with this, why being in third place for us is incredibly good, is that we produce only a mere fraction of the content that the BBC and the New York Times does, yet so much of our content has done well spreading through social channels. So I want to go back to the idea of redefining the story. These are some of the principles that really do animate the type of coverage that we like to give our audience, the type of coverage that we feel we can give our audience, despite the fact that we don't have a huge staff. We have, as I said earlier, about 55 journalists. They are mostly in New York, but we have offices on the West Coast in San Francisco and Los Angeles, as well as in London and Australia. We'll soon be opening an office in Singapore. But even with a relatively small staff, we try to cover a full range of breaking news topics. We want to be in the conversation when big events happen around the world. We know we can't cover everything, but we feel that our audience is very attuned to a lot of the big topics that are in the news media, and we want to be part of that conversation. We want to be a trusted source for them. But we also know our limitations there. We know what works well for our audience. So so on the one hand, we are trying to cover a full range or a broad range of global news events, but at the same time deliver content that is very specifically tailored to our audience. So here are some of the things that I think really do work for us when we are thinking of digital storytelling. So again, if I'm asked to talk about the future of digital storytelling, I might dodge that question, but I will say these are the ways we look at it now. These are the ways that I think work very well for our site, and I think can work well for others. Our storytelling is very visual. People love photographs. Photos are incredibly powerful. The best of them carry a wealth of information. They incite people's curiosity. They really appeal to people's imagination. We've done a lot of work with this column called the Retronaut, which we acquired less than a year ago, and it's proven to be extremely popular with our audience. It works very well in a mobile view, and this kind of thing has produced not only great traffic but incredible time spent on the site. That's one of the nice bits of metric news when we think about the future is what can you do to keep an audience engaged. And strong photography delivered in a compelling and rewarding format really does work. This is another example of something that did incredibly well on our site. The visual beauty of nature photography is is a resource that we've invested some in and will continue to do. We do a lot of storytelling that is based on social information, information that we get from, in this case, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. This is how we covered, or at least one day, this is how we covered some of the news from Gaza last summer. We teamed up with a company called Storyful to help verify a fair amount of user-generated content, mostly photos, but in some cases YouTube videos that were coming both from Gaza as well as Israel during the conflict. And so we don't have correspondents, obviously, covering an event like this. We will occasionally engage freelancers, but what we were able to do with this project is give a view of what was going on from the people on the ground through the lenses of their cameras. And those are just some of the tweets that we were able to find and verify, at least to the best of our ability, to publish on our site. We did a similar execution with a hurricane that came across the East Coast late last year. This was a project that we used a tool produced by a company called Geothedia, which finds Instagram images, uses geotagging to find Instagram images. They also have a tool that allows you to plot out on a map where the photos were taken and then to browse through them within the window of that tool. Storytelling really is immersive. We've worked with our developers to create very visual pieces of content, very visual executions like this. Sometimes they are simply built around photos, as the Ebola piece was. Sometimes they're built around specific news events, as the Comet was. Explanatory reporting does incredibly well for us. Again, it's something that we can do without having a team of foreign correspondents. Our content, we try to make our content very helpful, and doing charts like this. I mean, 661,000 shares. Whenever I pulled that screenshot, which was months ago, that is probably one of the highest sharing pieces of content that we've ever done. We like to have fun. Our audience likes to play around with memes. So do we. And when we see a good one, we like to republish them. And our audience rewards us with a lot of time spent on posts like this. I think the storytelling we do is very simple. After Apple announced the iPhone 6, all we had were dimensions, but no phone, at least for 2 weeks before it was actually on sale. So we 3D printed a fake phone and asked our staff to try to put it in their pockets, just to get a sense of what the size of the iPhone 6 Plus was going to be like. Very simple. Took a few hours to create, and it was a fun piece of minute-and-a-half video. And there's probably nothing more simple than working with Legos. And so when it was time to cover the midterm elections last November, instead of using a team of graphic artists like CNN had the access to, we plotted out what the U.S. Senate was going to look like with Legos, and that's how we covered politics. So there's a lot you can do. My final word is the future of digital storytelling very well might be Legos. So that's it.
Thanks, Jim. So what would be the longest piece in terms of word length that you would ever run?
Believe it or not, the longest piece that we've run on Mashable is longer than almost anything I ran at the New York Times. We did a piece about the history of Reddit that was somewhere in the vicinity of 9,000 words. Now, Reddit is a subject that doesn't appeal to everyone, but the people it appeals to, they really like to read about Reddit. And so we thought we thought the audience was there for a story of that length and depth. So,
but do you have some sort of metrics on the optimal length, and where do people stop reading?
You know, it's a great question, and I'm sure we could look into it. But when we do a post or a story, we're not so much thinking about a word count, but we are thinking about what are the components to it. And as long as we feel like there are strong sort of visual elements to keep your attention, whether it's an image or a piece of video, Instagram, anything that sort of, you know, keeps your mind ticking, we sort of feel that'll help propel interest in the story. So, I mean, we do. I would guess that most of our posts are in the realm of, say, 600 to 800 words, something like that. But we don't have a limit, and we don't really think about you know, any cutoffs or anything like that.
Okay. Just open it up to any questions on the floor. Everyone's sinking into exhaustion, I think. So.
I know. At the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That was really interesting.